You know that feeling, right? You're putting in the hours, you're sweating through your favorite gym shorts, and yet it feels like your muscle growth has hit an absolute brick wall. Hitting a plateau is honestly one of the most frustrating things you can experience when you're seriously focused on your training. But don't stress, because the research actually holds the answers. Let's dive straight into this explainer and figure out the actual science of breaking past that plateau. So let's just get right to it. Why aren't your muscles growing? It's super easy to just blame genetics or bad luck, but muscle growth isn't magic. It's a highly specific biological process. Think about it. Your body doesn't actually want to carry around extra metabolically expensive muscle tissue unless it is absolutely forced to. So to force that adaptation, we need to uncover the exact biological inputs required to make it happen. Here's how we're going to break it down today. First, why you aren't growing. Second, the mechanisms of muscle hypertrophy. Third, mastering progressive overload. Fourth, optimizing your training variables. And finally, diet, sleep, and stress. All right, kicking things off with part one, exactly why your progress has stalled. This right here brilliantly illustrates our very first major hurdle. As Dr. Mike from Renaissance Periodization puts it, and I love this, you can't get a 7,000 square foot mansion out of 3,000 square feet, and you sure as shit can't get jacked unless your body weight climbs. I mean, it's literally just physics. Extraordinary physical results require actual physical building blocks. If you aren't in a caloric surplus, your body simply does not have the raw materials to construct that new tissue. Period. Moving on to part two, let's look under the hood at the mechanisms of muscle hypertrophy. We really need to get the precise definition of hypertrophy down. According to research from Dr. Brad Schoenfeld and the National Academy of Sports Medicine, it's the enlargement of skeletal muscle fibers resulting from an increase in myofibril proteins, which are the actual contractile threads in your muscles, in response to tension. Notice the key word there, the enlargement of fibers. We aren't talking about hypertrophy, which is the creation of brand new muscle fibers. In humans, that basically doesn't happen. We are strictly taking the fibers you already have and making them bigger. Dr. Schoenfeld points out three specific biological triggers that basically act as the fundamental engine for all your muscle growth. First up is mechanical tension. This is the heavy physical force and stretch applied directly to the muscle. Second is muscle damage. We're talking about the literal micro tears in the muscle fibers caused by lifting. And third is metabolic stress. That's the buildup of metabolites when you rely on energy systems that leave behind lactic acid. You definitely know this one. It's that burning, swollen feeling we call the pump. Now, when you apply those three stressors, you wake up something truly amazing in your body: satellite cells. These are dormant stem cells just hanging out on the edges of your muscle fibers. Mechanical stimulation literally jolts them awake, and they rush in to repair those micro tears. But even more importantly, they donate extra nuclei to your muscle fibers. And more nuclei means your muscle has an exponentially increased capacity to synthesize protein and grow larger. It's like adding more workers to a factory floor. Which brings us to part three, mastering progressive overload. So, the crucial point you have to remember is this: your body will plateau if you don't continuously force it to adapt. This triggers what the NSEM calls general adaptation syndrome. It's just your body's method of recovering from and adapting to stress. To keep progressing, you've got to slowly scale up the difficulty. But the science is clear here. You should really only increase your load or volume by a maximum of 10% per week to keep your injury risk low. Furthermore, it absolutely requires high relative effort. Look, if your sets aren't getting anywhere close to muscular failure, you just aren't sending a loud enough signal for the body to change. And this brings us to another brilliant analogy from Dr. Mike. Imagine you want to drink a lot of really tasty orange juice. Well, first you actually need tasty orange juice. If you dilute it with 5 parts water just to get more liquid in the glass, you're drinking garbage. In the gym, high quality, meaning perfect technique and high relative effort close to failure, is your tasty orange juice. You absolutely must perfect the quality of your reps before you start adding more quantity to your workout. If you don't, you're just adding diluted junk sets that cause massive fatigue without actually triggering any growth. All right, part 4. Let's actually optimize those training variables. If we look at the standard rep ranges, low reps, so anywhere from 1 to 5, are fantastic for strength. They give you incredibly high tension, but very low metabolic stress. On the flip side, high reps, 15 and above, give you massive metabolic stress, but very low mechanical tension. That is exactly why the moderate 6 to 12 rep range is the undisputed sweet spot for hypertrophy. It perfectly combines both mechanical tension and metabolic stress to maximize your cellular growth signaling.
Once you're working in that sweet spot, you need to think about volume. Dr. Meg has this hilarious, but honestly incredibly accurate analogy for this. Volume to growth is like the number of chicken nuggets you eat to hunger. You can squash any amount of hunger by just eating more nuggets. Volume, meaning the actual number of hard, high-quality sets you do, is the absolute most direct correlate we have for triggering muscle gains.
So, naturally, how many nuggets should you eat? 3 to 8. That is the target for working sets per muscle per session. Doing 15 sets and cramming it all into one epic day buys you massive fatigue for literally 0 extra growth. That's classic junk volume. If you find you need more volume, you should increase your training frequency to 2 or 3 times a week rather than completely overdoing it in a single day. Let's see how all this builds into the anatomy of the perfect set. According to the research, you want moderate rest intervals of about 60 to 90 seconds. This maintains that metabolic stress while still allowing your strength to recover. You want a fast concentric lift, that's the pushing or pulling phase, taking about 1 to 3 seconds. But the absolute secret weapon is the eccentric phase, the lowering of the weight. A controlled, slow eccentric descent of 2 to 4 seconds actually forces your fast twitch fibers to work overtime, and that causes the most productive muscle damage. Finally, we arrive at part 5, diet, sleep, and stress. Because training is just the stimulus, recovery is the actual growth phase. Let's rapid-fire the non-negotiable rules of the anabolic diet. You need 1 gram of high-quality protein per pound of body weight. You need to spread this out across 4 to 6 meals to ensure consistent amino acid spikes in your bloodstream all day. You need a 250-calorie daily surplus, and you should be aiming to gain about half a pound of body weight per week. Without that caloric surplus and consistent protein, your body's absolutely going to refuse to build new metabolically expensive tissue. 7 to 9. That is the exact number of hours of sleep you require per night. Please, do not treat sleep deprivation like some kind of hustle culture badge of honor. Sleep is irreplaceable, fat-burning, muscle-building rocket fuel for your gains. Deep sleep is when your body actually heals those micro-tears and drops the fatigue so you can go in and train hard again. But here's a massive roadblock a lot of people ignore: chronic stress. Chronic stress and lifestyle drama flood your body with fight-or-flight hormones that literally break down muscle tissue to use for fuel. If you have a chaotic lifestyle, your body's going to prioritize survival way over building a massive chest. As Dr. Mike points out, if you're juggling 5 girlfriends, 3 side gigs, and constantly arguing in Instagram comment sections, you are actively creating a catabolic environment that is destroying your gains. Which leaves us with this final provocative question. Are you truly prioritizing your gains, or are you just going to the gym? Getting extraordinary results requires making lifting and recovery one of the absolute top priorities in your life. Check your technique, dial in those rep ranges, eat your protein, and get your sleep, because that is exactly how you break a plateau. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.